welcome to everybody to, excuse me, another episode of Bite-Sized Conversation.
Bite-sized. You've had a bite this morning.
Let me just take a sip.
I'll do the same thing.
Good idea.
There you go.
Great. We are
Hello, everybody who's watching. It's so good to see everyone. Not that I can see you, but I know that you're there.
Yeah, that's right. So, Jenny, how exciting about today with our topic of money. I've been really looking forward to this. And, I know that we both have lots of ideas around the topic. And in particular, I love the way that you approach it with your clients. So let's get stuck straight in to this wonderful topic of money.
Money.
Money
is such a funny thing. It's one of those things that people are either like really private about and don't like sharing, and it's all very kind of taboo. And there are others who just like, yeah, tell me, you ask the question, I'll share what I want. And I think that's the first place I want to start, is that so often in business, people think money is like this kind of private taboo subject, and up there with talking about sex in public. You can't actually do it. It needs to be all private, and I'm not allowed to say it because people might judge me about how much I make or how much I don't make or what I'm doing with it. The first thing I want to talk about is money is just energy. Money is just something that you use to facilitate life. Whether it's buying things, selling things, purchasing things, essentially it's a currency of exchange. So if you take the fear out of money and take away the status that it brings and the belief that it has around how good you are, how successful you are, and just think about it as a commodity or something that you need to use as part of your business, it takes the pressure off the money conversation. So that's the first thing I like to talk about. So I will tell everybody how much I'm earning. I'll tell you what my expenses are. I'll talk about what I charge clients. All that information I share with my clients and anybody, honestly, who asks me, because to me, money doesn't indicate how successful I am as an individual, how well I coach, or the impact that I have. It has a measure in the bigger picture. People like to say I'm $1 million business, or I'm a billionaire, and at that level, it's different. That's kind of like an epic level where really, whether you're charging a small or large amount no longer matters. So what I like to think of, and I like to start talking about, if you want to be a millionaire, if you like the idea of having more money and abundance and freedom to do anything, then start acting like that today. Start feeling like that. Start showing up like you have $1 million in the bank or more. Start behaving and thinking like you would if money was no longer an issue to you. Because then you start to open your mind up to so many other things other than money. But we often lead with money. How much will it cost? Is it worth it? Should I do it? And then it changes our decision making, both as when you exchange for services or when you're actually buying something. But then I ask you a question. If you go to buy a car and someone says, hey, this is the car that you want to buy, is money the first choice to purchase the car? It's a factor, but often people won't choose a car based on the price of the car. They choose the car based on it's a Tesla or a Toyota or a Land Rover or a Mercedes. They choose the car first, and then they work out how they can make it work for them. So that's what I want you to think about money. Money is just something that you have to worry about, or we worry about the back end, but it's not what drives us. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a really important point, is what drives us. So for everybody, it's different. I often hear people say, well, I can't really afford it, but actually you afford other things. It might be that you find the money for the wine that you like, or you find the money for your cigarettes, or whatever it is that you're finding money for. And if you just reduce that, you could pay for that. So it's all about choice, isn't it? And personal choice.
Yeah, and priority. It's actually what's important to you. But we're so worried about what people are going to judge us for, about where we spend our money. We don't like to tell people where we spend our money. So I like drinking wine. I like going to the gym. I like good food. I will always prioritize probably my order of, I pay for my gym. It just comes out. I don't even know. I actually couldn't tell you the exact amount I pay for my gym, because it doesn't matter to me how much. It's so important to me that I will pay whatever I need to pay. And I found a gym that I love to train at. I've gone from 3 days a week, which was my goal at the start of the year, to I train 6 days most weeks. And I don't even think about it. I just go, right? Because it's just part of what I do. And then, oh yeah, there's a money that comes out at the other end, but sure, it's not the driver. The same thing happens when we think about money in our business. So often, and I just had this conversation this week, and it is my favorite conversation. When we start a business, we can think about two things. We can think about how much money we want to make in the business, just because of the status, and I want to be able to say I'm this particular amount of money. We can think of what are the products and services that I want to sell, and focus on, I'm just going to create a business around what I want to sell, and I'll just pick some prices for it, and I'll decide what I'm going to do in the absence of thinking about the bigger picture. Or we can think about those two things together. And often people don't do the latter. They either say, I want to earn $500,000, so therefore I have to charge this amount of money, and I just kind of make it work. So it's about the revenue. So it's all about money. So every decision is about, how much more money can I get? How much can I save? And it becomes this transactional kind of feeling. If it's just about the product, and this is often what happens when people go from hobbyist into that business, and we say, look, I just love coaching. I just love doing this. I love making this product or selling my art, and I'll just sell it for something and it won't matter. But when we turn it into a business and we start to realize we're spending 60 hours a week earning $5 an hour because we actually didn't do the math about how much we're selling the product for versus how much time it's doing, we start to go, oh, this is not worth it. And then we lose our engagement, we lose our motivation because we don't see a value exchange. But if we combine those two together, and I know you and I have done this exercise, we combine that together and say, what is it that you want to be? How do you want to show up? And what do you want to have your life look like? So if we start with that question, what do you want to be in your life? So for me, I want to be able to travel 3 months a year with my family. The moment my stepdaughter is just in grade 7. So we'll have to wait a couple of years probably also for the borders to open up to do that. But 3 months a year, we want to be able to travel, explore the world, showcase, experience culture, food everywhere around the world. So what's that going to cost me? I also want to be able to have a car for my family, and, my partner will have a car, so we have those expenses. I need an office. So we start thinking about what the ideal life, what do I need to be able to pay for the ideal life? That's the figure you should be looking at, not the $1 million, $5 million, $10 million. That's great. And that will come if you work your business properly. But if we just say, what do we need to just have the perfect life, not have to think about what we're spending on, not have to worry about where the money's going, we come up with a figure. And my figure for my business for the first 500 years, and I'm happy to share it, is $500,000. It's $500,000. But I don't even like to say $500,000 because it's a weird number for me, but 500,000 has really good energy for me. So I say $500,000 allows me to do everything I want to do, have my business where I want to be, have the team that I want. That's what it costs. So then I can say, well, what do I need to do in my business? If I love coaching, if I love running programs, how can I make that money? How can I make that figure by delivering my services? So now my services become about the intention of growing and serving my family, my life, and my community, not just about the money that it's giving me.
Yes, I've done this with you, Jenni, at our business retreat, and it was a fantastic, fantastic way of looking at it. So looking at that future figure, and what I really enjoyed working with you on was that future figure. Is it even feasible? Is it even relevant? And so, for example, obviously with yours, with the 500, where you're at with it and why you need that. But I was really excited to see when we're working through with mine and with the others at the retreat, is that people didn't always actually need that amount. And that the ones that aimed even higher than they could even get their head around, actually, that was more like 5 years. It wasn't trying to be getting there this year, which is, I think, what can be really overwhelming when you think about where do you want to go with that. It doesn't mean you have to get that right now. You need to then put the steps in process to. And
that's the thing. It's that when I mentioned earlier about money being that measure of success, money is just money. The meaning that you place on it is up to you. So you can call money as a meaning of success. You can call money as energy and something that just as a transactional or commodity. You can call money a status symbol, whatever you want to, and that's okay. There's no judgment, no right or wrong about how you want to approach or feel about money. But what we do want to try and get is to release any negative or shame around your decision about how you view it. And there's so much shame often placed around that figure. Maybe it's just that Australian tall poppy syndrome that we like to have, to say, well, oh, if you're earning that much, well, you must be charging too much, or what are you doing? Are you underpaying your staff? Or there's always got to be a reason why your profit is so high, as opposed to just saying, that is awesome for you. I love that for you, that you're able to do that. That works for you, that works for your clients, that works for your team. Congratulations. How often do we see that? We don't. We often have this, oh, I don't really want to talk about money. And often you and I've talked about this on other occasions in other groups around when we're selling, the same thing happens. We're so worried about people judging us for what we want to charge for our services. It's that kind of like, well, it's going to be this much. And it's kind of like, I'll tell you, but can I pass you that piece of paper that you look at and just decide whether that's right for you or not? As opposed to saying, this is the cost of my program, this is what it is, and this is what it's worth. Because that shows confidence, that shows that right positive intention, and people see that, as opposed to be like, oh yeah, no, it's totally this much, and I think, but I'll give you all these other things to make you feel better about spending that much money with me. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I really like that. What extra value items are there that you're adding in? Because I know that for a lot of people, it's really hard getting their head around that hourly rate that they're choosing, or that they're saying is what they're going to charge. Yep. But actually, if you can work it out, not so much as an hourly rate, but say this is my package price. So of course, part of that, you will have worked out what is your hourly rate, but then there will be some extra special things that will come along with it. So it'll be resources, or, whatever it is, it'll be amazing customer service follow-up. It might be a warranty style of a situation, whatever there is that you're doing, whether you're product-based or service-based, knowing what those extra value add-ons are will help, I believe, will help a lot of people in how they're actually pricing that out.
Oh, most definitely. And pricing is such a funny thing. So if we think about that enough figure, let's just make it an easy number. Let's say $200,000 is the figure that you want, and you only want to coach 10 hours a week. So if you want to have $200,000 and only coach 10 hours a week, when we work out what the math is, then you might say, well, actually, it's 10 hours a week, but I actually want to run 5 programs a year. So you then know that each of those programs need to give you a revenue of $40,000. And then you say, well, $40,000, how many people are going to go through that program? Well, I want 10 people in my program. So therefore your cost is, then you need to charge $4,000 per person for 10 people in order to get your goal if you're running that 5 times a year. So you can be as simple as that. If you don't want to worry about the hourly rate, and you're just looking at what your total revenue needs to be in order for you to reach your goal and live your life in the way that you want to live your life and show up how you want to, then simply you say, okay, well, the program's going to cost me this, because I know that I can cope with 10 people per program. I know it's going to take me 12 weeks. And then we can start doing that conversation. And it was funny, when I just did this with a client recently, we did this enough process, and we looked at her hourly rate for her coaching. And it worked out that her enough figure was around $200,000. But the way she'd structured her current coaching is that it was about $78,000 based on what she had. And this is what the power of the exercise is you can actually see the gap that exists between what you have and what you want to have. And then we put in place a plan. And I said to her, like, but you want to do retreats? She's like, yeah, I love retreats. We added in just a retreat, not a program around the retreat, just a 3-day workshop, which for her, she's like, I feel really comfortable saying $2,000. I'm like, that's awesome. Let's do $2,000. And when we did the math, she realized that actually she could get the bulk of that $200,000 by doing 5 retreats a year with 20 people. And that was her money. And she was just like, oh, I'm trying to get all these people in coaching and kill myself doing bigger coaching sessions than I really want to, and try and serve all these people in group, when if I run the retreats, which is what lights me up, I can actually fulfill my life. And so what this exercise does, it's not about saying I'm worth this or I need this or whatever it is. It's actually saying, how do I structure my business, my time and my energy in order to fulfill the time that I want and the life that I want to live?
How freeing for her to get to that point of realization that actually I don't need to kill myself to get there. I can actually just follow the structure that you're sharing with her, and then boom, she's got it, which is just fantastic.
And it's not about, and that's the thing, it's not about the money. It's not about saying, it's not about trying to find a way. It's about maximizing your time and your effort to achieve what you want. It's not about killing yourself in order to get it.
And how about the product-based business, Jenni? So when you can sit there and go, how many units do I need to sell at this price point? And also everybody's expecting these days sales, Easter sales, you know, well, obviously it's not anymore just Boxing Day sales, is it? There's a sale for every single thing.
I think so when every week of something, isn't there?
Yes. And a lot of, and actually I was just discussing with Vistaprint with someone the other day, because we all know for those people that print with Vistaprint, nobody will actually put their thing, submit their item to be printed just on any given day, will they? Because you know that next week there'll be another discount. It might be 30, it might be 50, it might even be way more than that.
So and even if you go in one day and don't buy it, they'll send you the voucher the next day to get even better discount because you didn't buy it.
That's right. So that's an interesting type of way of doing it. It's almost like some of those big superstores and things that do the same thing. You know, within a matter of days or weeks, it's going to be back on sale again. But that's a problem, I believe, is that as soon as people are expecting sales, they're going to stop those purchases when they want them, or the ones that aren't like emergency purchases, and they'll wait for those sales. So I personally believe in business that wouldn't, particularly for a small business, that's certainly not the way to go. It's to stand your ground. It's to know that your product is amazing, that the customer service that comes with it is amazing. And then from time to time, there might be a really important reason that you want to do a sale, but it will be for a finite period. It won't just be ongoing. And what happened with Vistaprint, one of my clients was saying, is that they're no longer doing those super specials in that same way anymore. So that now people are kind of having a bit of a freak out is, where's all my newsletters with all those massive discounts? And so then what do people do? Do they continue to print with that company, or do they feel miffed and go, actually, you know what, I'm just going to go with a local printer? Because, you know, if I'm not going to get a discount with the one I was with that I'm used to getting, then I'll just go anywhere. So do you lose that kind of customer loyalty, or do you actually communicate with them and say, you know, we're restructuring, or, you know, or maybe you need to market in a different way and say, actually, we're across the board a lower price. So, you know, continue to come to us. So it's really interesting, isn't it? The way
it's such a great question about product-based business, though. And I guess when the product-based businesses that I work with and you work with are the kind of, I guess, small to medium product-based businesses. So even if they're doing big volume, it's the feeling of a community store. Yes. So I think there's a difference and the world is changing, particularly at the moment with very much a focus, you know, the grow local campaign has been going for like decades, but all of a sudden with COVID, people are now actually leaning into their community store, leaning into the local provider and the local supplier just so they get better quality, better service for all those things. And they're happy to pay a little bit of premium for that. So I guess my discussion around product-based businesses, and I just did this with a client, they want to become and I don't have their permission, so I won't talk about who the client is, but they want to have their product globally, and they have a particular figure that they want for their store, their business. So we know what the number of the revenue generation they want, and let's just call it $5 million. So they want to be a $5 million in 3 years' time. But what we worked out, I said, but that's not motivating anyone in your team to work harder, because no one in your team is there because of the money. Only you as the owners are really driven by that revenue goal. So what we did is we actually worked out how many individual stores based on an average order that they needed to be in as a company in order to reach that target. So, and that's from a revenue target. So we worked out based on $5 million, it's about 150 stores globally with an average order would get them their revenue results. So suddenly the goal for the business isn't about, say, weekly sales and revenue. It's actually about just saying we want to build relationships with 150 stores over the next 5 years. And if we maintain 150 stores consistently, we will always get our revenue goal. And if we build our customer service, build our engagement, and increase our stock range, then that revenue will creep up because the loyalty is there, and they'll just be the average order price will increase a little bit, or the stock range will change. So by knowing what the figure is and then knowing what your product is, we say, well, what is a metric? What is a target that allows you to structure the way that you operate? So for them, their focus is now on store and customer engagement rather than unit sales, because they know what that leads to the other. So by having that enough figure, by talking about the money at one angle, we can then say, well, what does that mean for us from a day-to-day operations perspective? How many units do I want to sell? And then you can include, so, okay, we know that 20% of our time we're on sale. So then we would have a 20%, we'd have a buffer in our targets. But by taking it away from the individual unit into customer and that customer value, you actually change your focus and the intention, and it brings you back, I feel, to why you started the business, which was to share a product, share a service, or provide somebody something that they can't get anywhere else.
Oh, that point around coming back to why you're actually doing it is so important. So my previous business was it was an e-commerce, or two different e-commerce stores. And I designed kids' toys and decor. They were all manufactured fair trade, and they went into stores around Australia and an overseas distributor. Now, I didn't know you back then, so I never worked on what is my enough figure, et cetera, and worked with that end goal and worked back. But what I worked on instead was the importance to me of manufacturing fair trade. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily the right thing for everybody, but it was certainly for me. Now, I had an accountant at the time that clearly was not aligned with my morals and values, or my values particularly. And so he would constantly be at me saying, you've got to go to China, Kylie, you've got to be mass producing, you're going to get a much better margin, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, but honestly, I was always saying, but to him. And what I should have known then was actually I need to align myself with a team around me that actually really get why I'm doing, what is the purpose of my business. And what I really needed to reiterate to him constantly was, those over 500 stockists that I have now, at most I might keep 100 of them if I move to a different style of manufacturing anyway. Yeah. So yes, I might get better margin and all that, but then I'd be literally feel like I'm starting again, because those stores wouldn't align then with the products that I was manufacturing. So I think it's so important always coming back to, so obviously looking at your enough figure, looking at where you're headed, what you want to do, what your goals are, but then coming back to what makes it okay for me, what drives me to do what I do. And I know that I couldn't sleep well at night if my products that I was designing were being manufactured in a way that I didn't feel was ethical.
And I had this conversation actually just beforehand and this week with a colleague of mine about that kind of idea of scaling, about how you generate your revenue. So as coaches, you do all your work online, and all your work is most of it's live online. In fact, all of it I think is live online at the moment. And I've had so many phone calls from particular coaching organizations and particular groups saying, oh, Jenni, if we put you on an online program, we scale your product, you will actually be able to get your revenue. You'll have your days where you won't have to talk to anybody and you can live free and do your life. We'll just move your product online. And 3 years ago, I started to write that program. And then halfway through it, I went, this is horrible to me. The idea of people connecting with my work without me actually having any interaction was, I just couldn't do it because it's not authentic to me. I want the conversation. I want to see the reaction. I want to find that little pain point and help them through it, because that's what coaching and guiding and mentoring is about. It's not just about information sharing. But we know that we could scale our product and scale our services if we created an online downloadable product. And even if we do that, there still has to be a high touch, or there has to be a touch connection to it, at least for me. So knowing that means that we can then structure what we're doing and how we serve to suit that. Whereas I've got a colleague of mine who loves coaching, but really gets a bit stressed by the whole organizing client meetings and everything else. And it's just like, if you just put me in the room and let me do it, and then other people do everything else, that would be awesome. But that's not reality, is it? So she's creating an online program because her goal is legacy. Her goal is actually legacy and scale on a global scale. So for her, it's important that she creates an online program that actually then allows people to access when they're ready to access it. And then if they want time with her, they'll do that through a different program. So again, back to that point, what do you want to do? Why do you want to serve? And how do you want to do that? And how is that connected with your long-term goals as a business, as a family, as a human on this planet?
Jenni, that's so good. And then I want to also touch on money mindset. Yeah. So how we think about money and what we feel we deserve. Because I think even before we can look at what would we like, that can for some people be incredibly impossible, like to even think about that, because do I even deserve to earn more money? What am I doing that's better that actually warrants that, for example? So in my scenario, you know, for many, many years now, more than 13 years since my husband had his accident, we've had carers in our home. So I'm consciously aware every day what an important job that they do every moment that they're in our home and looking after my husband. So you look at a nurse, for example, compared to a carer, and the difference in pay that they're getting. You look at a doctor compared to a nurse, and then you look at a specialist compared to that again. And it's funny that from my observations, the more that they tend to be getting paid and the higher up that ranking that they're going, the less customer service they're giving, the less that they're actually making you feel heard and making you feel all kinds of things. And my husband's recently had another associated problem. And the doctor that he'd been seeing for 3 months was making no headway with this problem. So he got on good old Dr. Google, looked at all the different options that there could be, ended up with his carer picking up something from a pharmacy, no prescription, no nothing. And within a week, that problem was sorted.
Wow.
And that is a real, and also he tried to get him to see a specialist, but that was months away, etc. So it's really fascinating. And also to me, the fact that that doctor knew this was a big problem, but was never actually following up. He would have to book another appointment and all that. It's like, it's so interesting, isn't it? The way we're charging, the way that we feel, you know, that yes, because we've got this experience means we can charge this amount, but what are people getting for that? What are we getting for the money that we're putting out there? So you and I did a course some time back that really triggered me in a negative way, because one of the big questions was, what did your parents earn? Because what your parents earned will determine how you feel about money. And I said, I've got no idea what my parents earned, because it was never something that was discussed. And I don't think that that's my issue around what I could be earning. For me, it's completely irrelevant, you know, completely irrelevant. My father's business was a film production business. He had amazing years and terrible years. And, you know, it was just what I learned from him was about working hard and then enjoying the money that he earned with his family, etc. My mum was a dance teacher, so that in itself will never be a huge income, but yeah, that was her passion. And she loved every day that she worked and taught people to love dance in the way that she loved it. So I could not work out how I would equate what they earned to what my potential was. And I remember you and I having many discussions around this, because there were a lot of people being triggered by that.
Definitely.
So where do you sit with that now, Jenni? And
That's a great question. So I'm going to answer it two ways. So the money mindset piece is really interesting, because and it goes back to my first question, the first point. If you want to be a millionaire, if you want to earn like a millionaire, then be a millionaire now. So start thinking like they do now. And I saw this recently on a couple of posts that I was reading in a number of other programs, and that this idea of show up how you want to be. So that kind of be the change in the world concept is, if you show up thinking abundantly, thinking not from a scarcity mindset, thinking from an abundant mindset that basically says, I have what I need and what I need will come to me. So that's my attitude around money, and my money mindset is, even when I get a little bit stressed, because I'm like, oh, you know, business cash flow can be a challenge sometimes. And I've sat there and gone, you know what? I'm just going to let it go, whatever anxiety I have, because what I need will come when it needs to come. And in fact, in the last month, that has come in spades. And I've had this kind of complete freedom in, you know, stuff will happen when it happens. So the first thing I would say about mindset is to actually let go our belief that in some respect of, you know, our connection to the past or the present or any of that piece, and just think about what we want. Abundance, open-minded, what we need will come to us when we need it. And if we need more, it will come. And if, as in business, it's happened for you, when you're ready to scale, you've been open about it, your business has blown up because you were open to it and you kind of were free about it. You didn't have any anticipation or judgment or kind of anxiety around it. It happens, right? The idea about the parents thing is such a fascinating example, and I think it's an old school way of thinking. And to some extent, I think asking the question is actually designed to trigger. And maybe it's the difference in the way that you and I coach to others coach, is that it's deliberately designed to make a trigger in somebody's brain so that they either think positive or negative. From a negative perspective, as it triggered for you, then it takes you down a rabbit hole of, well, then, as from a coaching perspective of where you must be in your mindset around money, you must have a limited view, and that view, where in actual fact, you can be earning well more than your parents earn and have this incredible open mindset, but still have a scarcity kind of response to it about holding on to it. So I think it's a deliberate question designed to trigger, because the purpose of it is to identify which lane to take you. If somebody comes out as a scarcity mindset, then it's an opportunity to teach them abundance and to teach them openness and to change that mindset. If they come out with an abundant mindset of saying that they have, they earn more and they've let that go, then it's an opportunity to show them how to build and scale. So I'm with you. I find the question limited in its scope, but the intention and the purpose is deliberate to trigger.
And it's such a good point about the trigger, because I was clearly triggered, but not in any of those ways, more in like, I just don't see the relevance for me. But it actually really did work for some people. There were tears, there was all of that. And then they talked about, my parents only earned this and I always felt bad about that. And now here I am breaking free. And I definitely saw that as a positive for them. So clearly those strategies work for some, just not for others. And I think that's the point with everything around the topic of money. Being comfortable to talk about it isn't necessarily a right or wrong. It's just, where does it sit with you? And also for a lot of people, it's about, or for example, for me, if I'm charging a whole lot of money for something and then I'm plastering all over social media that I've just bought this and I'm doing that and I wouldn't feel particularly comfortable with that. But on the other hand, if I show, for example, I run a not-for-profit, so I'm putting extra into that and extra time into making that better and bigger and helping more people, that then feels like that resonates with my core values.
And that comes back to the mindset around money. So for you, money is, and I would suggest and we've known each other for a while now, is money for you is a tool to help to create impact in others. So the money is not a status symbol for you. It's something that you have, but it's actually designed to create impact. So what you do with your money, how you spend your money, is important to you because you want to make sure there's a legacy and impact in how it's spent in the world, how it goes out in the world. So your choice of, where you buy your vegetables from and where you buy your bread from and how you engage in the community is reference to your importance of community and sharing and impact in the world. And that's what makes the way you grow your business so beautiful, because it is to an extent organic and it's about community growth. So you would find that same view and mentality in a not-for-profit, and you run one, in a social enterprise style activity, which is about community growth, versus someone with a mindset which is about abundance and freedom, and they want to set their business up so they only work 10 minutes a day. That's awesome for them, and I love that for them. I would be bored if I only did 10 minutes a day. I literally wouldn't know what to do with the rest of my day. I love coaching. I love talking to people. And so for me, when I think about money, I don't even think about what I'm worth. I don't actually think about that value connection. Money and worth to me are not the same. And I've had this conversation a lot with a number of clients recently who say, look, I only want to charge $125 an hour because and I'm like, well, okay, that's really interesting. Why do you think that? And when we dig deep in that, it's because they have this connection about their self-worth with how much they charge. Whereas when I look at how much I charge, I say my job is to make as a coach, is to cut through and debunk and hack their current mindset and thoughts and streamline their process so they can get to where they want to get to more easily, more streamlined, more efficient, more effectively, quicker, whatever word you want to use. So I can cut through the 7 years of pain or the 10 years of pain that we did to learn what we did. We cut through it, right? So what's the value of 7 years experience or 10 years experience or 30 years experience drilled down into an hour? So it's not about your worth. It's not about you as an individual. It's about the memory, the knowledge, the wisdom, the experience, and the IP that you're sharing. And if you actually thought about what the value of that is, it's going to be far greater than whatever hourly rate we currently charge. So I think we have to take it. It's not about us as individuals, hourly rate. It's the knowledge that we're sharing. If it's a product, it's the cost of the product plus your time and effort to design and create it and run your business. That's why we have product margin, that profit margins, and that's why we have that gap. We're not just selling it for the price that it cost us to make, because that doesn't account for all that IP. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges with the mindset, is to say that what you charge is actually not about you as an individual. It's about the value and the exchange that you're sharing. So that's knowledge, wisdom, time, effort, emotional support, whatever it is you do. And we don't, as I don't believe as a society, we value that as much as we should. We focus on the money and not the value and the exchange. And that's where the growth is. That's where opportunity lies. That's where that kind of expansion lies in business.
I totally agree. And I'd love to share as a little final, and for me to share and then you to share, about a top tip for the growth. So for example, for me, my business has been steadily growing, which has felt wonderful, and it's been organic, and where I've put the effort in, I've received the rewards from it. But the big change for me was when COVID hit, and I just, well, firstly, I could no longer, like, we were in lockdown before everyone else, so I could no longer turn up to my in-person workshops and speaking gigs, etc. So I had to say to those people, I'm super sorry, it's going to be online. I was luckily already working a lot on Zoom anyway. So what happened though is I decided to offer that weekly webinar and just put it out there. So giving free information every week, boom, boom, off we go. And people were saying to me, oh, you should be charging for it. That seems crazy. And I said, no, because a lot of people need help right now. And so if I can be offering it, at the very least, I'm just, well, I'm helping people, but I'm widening my net. I'm getting more visible. Yep. I'm showing people that, I know what I'm talking about. I can help, blah, blah, blah. So at the very least, my email database is growing. Then if those people get to know, like, and trust me, if they like what I'm saying, if they totally can see that it's going to make changes in their business, then when the time is right for them, then they might want to work with me. And if they don't, that's okay, because they'll be able to go away with new, fresh knowledge to be able to help themselves. So that was my big turning point, was actually offering free. It was a really big change in the way that that money and people came to my business. So what about for you, Jenni? What would be your top tip for your own personal growth in business?
I think for me, the growth, and it's a really interesting question, because it does change, and even your response there is totally, you are the definition of social enterprise in the way that you approach your business, which is so beautiful. And I think if for that kind of idea of saying it's about abundance, it's about community, it's about sharing first, and then the stuff will come, the energy will come, the money and the exchange will come later. I think for me, in terms of my biggest change for my growth, is actually is that separation between not looking at what my hourly rate was going to be. So I very rarely charge an hourly rate for anything. I actually do most of my work as a package or a single price. Now, there has been some calculations at the back end about the hourly rate, but to be honest, I don't really know what that is. I've kind of let it go. It doesn't matter to me anymore. So I look at a package price. So I think separating and saying, what is the value that I'm bringing to them? What is the time and effort and energy, and what is a fair value exchange? So when I do things like content writing, or if I'm writing people's capability statements, or preparing grant applications, or all those other things that I do for people, which is part of my core business, but I don't share a lot of, I know for them, the value of that piece of work, if they get the grant or they get the contract with that company, is about 20-fold what I'm charging. So what I do is I tend to look at it, or between 15 and 10 and 20-fold. So I tend to look at that as the ratio. What is the value of the work that you could get? What does it mean to you? And that's what I charge. So I look at this value exchange piece, and by doing that and letting go of it's going to take me 5 hours, and 5 hours at this amount of money, but then I've got to do a little bit here, all that effort and energy into creating this kind of model actually just exhausts me. And it also then starts making me think, well, I don't want to do any more for you, because I'm only charging you an hourly rate. Whereas when I've let it go and said, this is the value of the work that you're doing with me, or that I'm doing for you, that's what the value is. And that has actually allowed people have just gone, yeah, no problem. I have no problem with that. And the yeses are much easier, because they see that it's value. I'm not trying to kind of over justify or under justify what I'm paying. It's just, this is the value. This is what the benefit is.
I love that, Jenni. I really love it. So on that topic, in terms of thinking for our topic for next week, what I really want to do is carry through the idea of money, but in terms of where you're spending your money. And so, for example, ads versus organic. So looking at, do you want to spend money on Google ads, or do you want to work on your SEO? Or is your SEO nailed before you start spending money on Google ads? Same with Facebook and Instagram. Are you spending money on ads before you've actually nailed your content? So carry on that money chat, but in terms of where we spend it. So let's join together next Friday. Oh, is that Good Friday?
Oh, it's Good Friday. We might have, is it?
Yes, I believe it is. So let's join in a fortnight and chat about where we spend our money in terms of our visibility and, you know, how we choose to spend it. Because I definitely don't think that you should not spend, if that makes sense. Like, I'm definitely not against the spending. I just think you've really got to nail all the other things. So let's go into that, delve a bit deep.
How do you get the biggest bang for your buck?
Yeah, that's a great topic. You summed that up beautifully. Yes. Thanks, Jenni. So how can everybody get in touch with you?
So you can find me, Jenni Walke. It's at Elephant in the Room AU on Instagram and Facebook. They're the easiest places to find me. You can also go to my website, eitrconsulting.com. But I hang out a lot in Facebook and on Messenger. So reach out if you have any questions. Happy to chat.
Wonderful. And I'm Kylie Mowbray-Allen from Hello Media, and you can find us at hellomedia.team on Instagram and on YouTube, and on Facebook, hellomedia.dreamteam. So awesome to connect with you today, Jenni.
Such a great chat. Thank you.
Love to chat about the money topic, especially, and I really advise for anyone to get in touch and have a one-on-one with Jenni and talk about that end goal and how to figure out how to break it down so you actually can get there in bite-sized pieces.
In bite-sized pieces, little baby steps.
Baby steps. That's beautiful. All right. Thanks, Jenni. You have a wonderful day and a great weekend. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.